Good evening. I will call the regular meeting of the Oak Ridge City Council for March to order. We're glad that you all are attending tonight. Our invocation will be given by the Reverend Bailey Norman from St. Stephen's Episcopal Church, and our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Maggie Wells, fourth grade student at Linden Elementary School. So if everyone would please stand.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we are so thankful for this city, for its people, for the work, the ministry, and the gifts that are offered among these people here. Grant that this time here may continue to be blessed with good work, with building up community, with supporting those especially who are suffering or need help in our community, that we may continue to be a blessing to one another, and that your work may continue to flourish in this great city. We ask this in your most holy name. Amen.
Okay, Maggie.
Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Maggie. Good job. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Pro Tem Dotson.
Here.
Councilmember Gleason.
Here.
Mayor Gooch.
Here.
Councilmember Hammond. Councilmember Hensley. Here. Councilmember Hope. Here. Councilmember Smith. Here.
Thank you. Our first order of business is proclamations and public recognitions. Madam Clerk, if you would take the first one.
First item is a proclamation honoring Jack Suggs on the occasion of his retirement from the city of Oak Ridge.
Move to accept.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. And I'm going to ask our city manager, Mr. Heeman, to present the proclamation on behalf of the citizens of Oak Ridge and City Council. Mr. Suggs, if you and your lovely wife would please come forward.
I'd like to read this proclamation, and before I do, I just want to tell you that Jack Suggs is a friend to many. He is a father figure to many that work here, and he is in only 4 months become a great friend to me, and I appreciate him. You cannot put into words in a proclamation the service that somebody like Jack has done for this community. When I posted his position, which I hated to do, I will add, on LinkedIn and put something on there about it, one of the first comments was, it's hard to imagine Oak Ridge without Jack Suggs. And I will say it really is hard to imagine, but I'm going to read this and try to get through it. Whereas Jack Suggs has been the deputy city manager for the city of Oak Ridge since 2021, and whereas Mr. Suggs is retiring on April 5th, 2024 after a 40-year career in public service, and whereas Mr. Suggs was chosen to serve as interim manager upon the retirement of Mark S. Watson on May 5th, 2023, and served in that role until November 1st, 2023, and whereas Mr. Suggs received a bachelor's degree from Texas Technological University and a master's degree from Texas A&M University, and whereas prior to becoming deputy city manager, Mr. Suggs served as the electric department director for the city of Oak Ridge for 30 years, and whereas Mr. Suggs has touched and shaped many aspects of this city organization, focusing on instilling an ethos of accountability and public service in all of the organizations of which he has been a part. And whereas Mr. Suggs has been a great leader, a superb mentor and a friend to many in the organization. And whereas Mr. Suggs has maintained a tireless commitment to promoting customer service as a core value organization-wide and has consistently set an expectation of quality in all aspects of performance. And whereas throughout his career, Mr. Suggs has provided opportunities for employee development and has emphasized education, training, accountability, and inclusion of historically underrepresented groups. And whereas Mr. Suggs is extremely proud to have been known as the go-to guy for organizational issues over the past 3 decades, and he has been instrumental in developing and implementing and maintaining a culture of safety throughout the city. And whereas, although Mr. Suggs will be missed by all city employees and colleagues who have become like a family to him, he's looking forward to spending more time with his wife, Joan, and 4 adult children and 2 grandchildren. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the City Council of the City of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, that in recognition of his distinguished service to the Oak Ridge community, the City of Oak Ridge hereby honors Jack Suggs and extends to him our gratitude and best wishes upon the occasion of his retirement. In witness thereof, this day, March 19th, 2024.
Thank you.
Mr. Suggs, you get the last word.
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate it.
It's not the first time, but
I've been 35 years. I thought maybe 3 minutes of the highlights of each year. I have a couple things I want to say, and I really do appreciate the chance to say so. Number one, the decision to retire has not been an easy one for me. The family or the people I've worked with in the city have been like a family, and I feel like that we're pursuing a mission which is worth pursuing. And I'm very proud to be a part of this organization, and I'm going to miss the people I work with every day. I came here in 1989 from Wichita Falls, Texas, as the Assistant Director of Public Works, and I ended up focusing on wastewater. You may find it amusing that I liked going out to the field and watching things go wrong. The Personnel Director, Paul Boyer, pulled me aside and told me that MBWA stood for Management by Walking Around, not Management by Waiting Around. So in 1991, I was promoted to Electrical Director, and it's hard to believe that with that kind of tenure you don't become bored, frankly, but the industry changed, the TVA rate structures changed, we had new challenges every year, the addition of the business office, and it was a very satisfying career. I tried really hard to represent regionally and nationally the interests of our citizens here. And I became known, actually there will be people who might tell you this, I became known for talking about Ma and Pa Kettle, who were my imaginary customers who lived up on the hill, and how what we were going to do was going to affect them. And it was a real part of my life. 3 years ago, I was asked to take the position of a deputy city manager, which eventually led to me becoming the interim city manager for you. And I want to thank you for that honor, and I'll always remember it. There are a few people I wanted to say thank you to, and the first group, and you realize I'm retiring, there's no reason to say this, the first group is you guys. I don't think that the community realizes the effort, the hours, the work that you put in as council members, and it's something the community should know. And I want you to know that I appreciate it. And I will always be grateful for the work you do. I've worked for 8 different city managers over my career, the county and the one in Wichita Falls. And each one of them I owe a debt of gratitude because of the trust they placed in me to lead organizations. And I want to acknowledge those. I had great employees. I asked a lot from those people, and they rose to every challenge. And thanks to them, from late nights at the business office to standing in substations trying to get the power back on. When I went to be deputy city manager, I got to know, not as deep because the role was different, but I got to understand the other departments a lot better and see the police and see the fire and see the parks and see the public works people that I'd walked away from and the library, lest I forget to mention the library. And as I got to know those people and understand the challenges that they faced, it was enlightening for me. Finally, my wife, Joan. There's a lot of talk about balance of life, and I tried to have a balance of life, but I wasn't always able to do that. In Texas one Saturday, there was a surprise party for me, and I was at work. There's been a lot of those nights. And my favorite memory may be when we were getting in the car to go on a week's vacation, a thunderstorm rolled into town, and one of my little kids looked at me and said, "Hurry up, Daddy, before you got to go to work." So the best present I'm going to give Joan, I think, is I'm going to promise her that the day I retire, I'll turn off my cell phone and I'll go to bed. So you'll be on during the day, but at least at night we'll have it turned off. So maybe that'll be good. I'm looking forward to my retirement, but I'm regretting not watching Mr. Heeman. He's a great leader. I think he's going to do great things for your organization, and I wish I could be here to see him. And finally, in closing, there's a quote from Steve Jobs when he recruited John Scully away from Pepsi. And he said when Scully turned him down several times because Scully was really doing great things at Pepsi, he didn't want to leave, go to work for this startup company called Apple. And he was quoted as saying, Steve Jobs looked at him and said, "Do you want to sell sugar water the rest of your life, or do you want to change the world?" And I've really been honored to work with people who change the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Next proclamation, Madam Clerk.
A proclamation designating March 2024 as Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. And it is approved, and the clerk will get the proclamation to the appropriate people. Next proclamation, Madam Clerk.
A proclamation designating March 2024 as American Museum of Science and Energy Month.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Mr. Dodson is going to present the proclamation on behalf of the city and the council.
First, I want to say a few words. My friend Alan Lowe and the staff and volunteers and the board of the American Museum of Science and Energy celebrated a momentous occasion today, the 75th anniversary. And it was well attended, and we really appreciate how the community has embraced the museum over these past 75 years. And it's my pleasure and honor to present you and your staff with this proclamation to the city of Oak Ridge.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, friends, good to see you. Thank you so much for this honor. On behalf of the AMSI Foundation, we are truly and deeply grateful. You know, AMSI is indeed proud to share this anniversary with and receive this proclamation from the city that we truly love and we work to serve every day. As I said at our anniversary celebration earlier today, which was a packed house, which was great to see at AMSI, I believe, despite our long and successful history, that our future's never been brighter than at this very moment at AMSI. I'm really excited about what's next for us, the next 75 years. In our exhibits, our public programs, all the stuff we do in education, all of it continues to grow and to change, and with new outreach through things like virtual education and our podcast, AMSIcast. And with the addition in 2020 of the K-25 History Center, we have even more ways to teach and engage and inspire. So I always say our reach is broad, but AMSI's home has always been and always will be right here in Oak Ridge. We love being part of this community, and we very much appreciate this honor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next proclamation, Madam Clerk.
A proclamation designating April 5th, 2024 as Arbor Day.
So move.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Mr. Hedrick here? Oh, Mr. Hedrick, if you come forward and accept the proclamation, and it should be presented by Ms. Smith.
John, I don't know how many years we've been doing Arbor Day in this city, but it's an important event. We appreciate it. Appreciate your role.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to do this again. I believe this is our 37th year
Yeah.
at the Tree City USA. We'll also be recognized again as a Tree Line USA city. And we're very pleased. This is the highlight of the year every year to celebrate this with our fourth grade students throughout the city. And we're looking forward to Friday.
Next item of business is the consent agenda, and we need to remove item F because it will have to have an amendment, but we'll do it right after the approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. It is approved unanimously. We will now go to item, which would have been item F under the consent agenda. Madam Clerk?
A resolution authorizing the acceptance of $125,755 in American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds from Roane County, Tennessee.
All right. Ms. Rackard, we have an amendment.
Yes, sir. If you'll look on your screen, we have a bold strike through to recommend that you strike out some language at the end of the second whereas so that we are not listing a specific project. It will give the city more flexibility with what we use that particular ARPA funding for. It will be a Roane County Oak Ridge project, though.
All right. Any questions about the amendment? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Okay, we are back on the resolution itself. Are there any questions for Mr. Berg or Ms. Rackard? Seeing none, the motion is to approve. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? There are none. Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk. We are on public hearings and first reading of ordinances.
Yes, an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances, City of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, Title 5, titled Municipal Finance and Taxation, to amend Chapter 3, no title, Chapter 4, titled Contracts and Purchases, and Chapter 5, titled Management of City Property, by reorganizing the provisions for better clarity, revising the provisions to add statutory exemptions, and to raise the city manager's contract authority, as well as the sealed competitive bid and advertising limit to $50,000, and no public hearing is required.
Move for approval.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Rackard?
Thank you. So the item in your packet is an ordinance that takes what was chapters 4 and 5 and expands it into chapters 3, 4, and 5, just to give it a little bit better organization. So we split contracts out separately, then purchasing, and then management of real property. As was read in the title, the main portion of the amendment is to provide better organization, but also to raise the city's sealed bid limit to the statutory maximum of $50,000. We currently have a $25,000 limit that we do now. And if we raise it to 50, then we have a lower limit where you do not have to do a sealed bid process, but you get an informal bid process. Currently, the city's amount at that one is $2,500 to $25,000, and this would move it to $10,000 to $50,000. So you've got a chart in your packet that sort of shows those changes and then highlights a little bit of the changes in each chapter. And I'd be happy to, if you want to, we can go over it in more extensive detail at work session if you feel that we need to go over that.
Okay. Are there questions for Ms. Rackert tonight? This is on first reading, and the ordinance will have to come back for second reading. Mr. Hensley?
Yeah, Ms. Rackert, on the last page of the written letter, the next to last paragraph, it says the fifth provision codifies current city practice of transferring a memento upon retirement to an employee. What is a memento?
So we have some various things. It's just a word I use to sort of encompass all sorts of things that we might do. For example, we've had an employee that upon their retirement, we let them have their city laptop. Sure. Or the city-issued cell phone. Instead of surplusing that item out, we surplused it out internally and gave it to that person. Same thing would be for, badges that you might give public safety and those type of things, just to clarify that those are not in the prohibition of employees in city property.
Any other questions, Ms. Smith?
Yes. Couple of specifics. There's a provision in the provision for competitive sealed proposals. I believe that refers to proposed contracts that will be evaluated on merit rather than on cost. Is that an appropriate interpretation of that?
Yes.
It's 5-407.
For your professional services type agreements where the city would go out and seek proposals instead of a bid item, but we're still looking at, the various criteria where it's not price specific.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that because I was pretty sure that's what it was, but it wasn't necessarily clear. Another question, sole source reasoning has to be submitted to the purchasing office under this proposal. Is there any requirement that the purchasing office should review them, the reasoning for sufficiency, and intervene if they find issues with that?
Yes, so part of the ordinance is the intention that we will do an internal purchasing manual that can sort of better define things. Sole source has been a difficult one to sort of, define in an ordinance with really some specificity. So that's been something that we've just looked at internally and look at the criteria that someone is looking at. But I wanted to make sure that people knew that we were looking at. I want people to know that you can be very specific in your criteria for an item if you need to be. And I think we've had some staff members that feel that they can't be really specific when they're looking to bid something out and have to consider things that they might not want to because someone else might consider it to be an equivalent. But yes, that is something that we would look at internally in finance, and of course the city manager can intervene as well on something that we would look at and say maybe that's not a sole source and require it to be brought forward. And we have done that before.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't want to suggest that we need a lot of bureaucracy on these, but I know that these are difficult people to work with, and I think it would be nice if there was some expectation that the purchasing department would be able to communicate back if there was a concern about somebody's justification, rather than simply being told you'll get it and put it in a file, which is what the ordinance kind of said to me. So that's something I'd like to just look at, if there's a better way of making sure that it's not just for receipt, it's not just to receive
Sure.
the document, but to somehow review it for sufficiency.
Okay. I'll be happy to look at that and then send you some modification to look at and see if it covers what you're looking at.
Okay, appreciate that.
If there are other questions?
I have one more.
Oh, please, okay, go ahead.
That I understand the appropriateness of increasing the financial thresholds for some of these items because unfortunately things cost a lot more than they used to, and $50,000 isn't as much as it used to be. But one of the reasons that, to my mind, one of the reasons that council historically has approved some of these larger small contracts, the $25,000, $50,000 items, is that there may be items in them that we need to or should know that this is an activity that the city is carrying on, so that we should be aware of what's happening, even if we're not needing to approve the financial transaction. Is there some way that the ordinance could be written to indicate that these items should be communicated to the council on a regular basis, so that we know? I can't think of a great example right now, but there are some things that could be controversial in the minds of some of our residents. It'd be useful to know that there are things that we ought to be aware of in case issues should arise.
I think if there's like a specific category that you wanted to always be aware of or wanted to actually vote on, for example, vehicles, we could accept that out of that language and require those always to come back to City Council. I do not mind on a monthly basis to report to City Council what contracts were executed under the city manager's authority. I don't have access to what is necessarily purchased, that doesn't involve a contract, but I'd be happy on the contract side to provide that information to you in a memo. On the purchasing side, I'm not sure how easy that is. I'm sort of looking at Janice to maybe give me a little help there, just because we do have certain purchases that go through finance, and then there's a lot of purchases that are done internally by departments, so I'm not sure how best to address that one for you.
Right, and I think that I think that Tammy's right. If you can give us a category of certain things you would like to see, because we're running into a lot of routine items, particularly like in electric and public works, which are not particularly. It's just purchasing of materials, and for routine type work or repairs, that sort of thing. So if there's a category that you're specifically interested in, I mean, we can do whatever you request of us, but I think there's probably some items that you might not particularly be interested in. Some of the routine maintenance type items. Would it be helpful if I pulled a list together for you for next week's work session that sort of gave you the type of things that you have approved in recent past that wouldn't come before you under the new ordinance, so you could see purchases and contracts?
I'm not sure that I need to have that list, because we have that in the record of what we've done.
You do,
So
but I mean, I don't mind to
Yeah, it's not.
pull it for you.
But I think I'd like to explore
Okay.
this topic before its second reading.
Okay.
Just to see if there are things we ought to be asking for communication
Sure.
about.
Okay.
And while I have the floor, I'd like to point out that anything on our agenda is potentially something that members of the public here can ask about or comment on after council has finished its discussion. So when we don't have a public hearing on a new ordinance, that doesn't mean that the public doesn't have an opportunity to speak to it as an agenda item as it comes out. That's something that I know people don't always recognize. So, thanks for the time.
Mr. Hensley.
Several weeks ago, the Scarborough community asked us to tour the Elks Lodge in Scarborough, and they've got a short-term need to upgrade because they're having a convention that would bring a whole lot of people into Oak Ridge. Would that be an example of something we could do within this limit?
I think that project, that's a 501c3 owned building. It's not typically something we would do outside of a budgetary process where you would all be given a chance to deliberate on that, is really my comment. I do know also that there's some potential planning at looking at future uses for that building, and that would be something that I think we could and should support. But as far as the renovation, that's something that, quite frankly, I think ought to be discussed amongst the board during regular budgetary meetings.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, the motion is to approve the ordinance on first reading and will be on the board.
Six ayes, no nays.
And it is approved, the ordinance is approved on first reading. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Under final adoption of ordinances, we have an ordinance to amend Title 12, titled Building, Utility, Etc. Codes, Chapter 11, titled Residential Code, Section 12-1102, titled Amendments of the Code of Ordinances, City of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, by adding 6 new subsections to adopt state-required amendments to the 2018 edition of the International Residential Code, and to create a new Section 12-1103, titled State-Required Provisions, all for the purpose of statutory compliance.
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Blazes?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I wanted to make a comment that the next 2 items are basically the same thing. One is for the residential code, one is for the commercial code. So I just wanted to put it in some context that will help. We won't have to repeat it on the next one. These are state state mandates that they have changed the 2018 code that we have adopted that will affect the energy code that we are required to comply with, because it says that we can't be more strict than the state code. So that's what this is about. It'd be a state amendment of an existing energy code. I would mention that it's our department's intention to bring to you sometime this year updating to the 2024 code. When we do that, we will still be bound by the amended 2018 code in terms of energy, which doesn't matter for this tonight, but I just wanted you to have that context, so we'll talk more about that later. Happy to talk more about the details, and I have Ms. Crumpley, our building and codes official, here to answer technical questions that are beyond my pay grade.
Okay. Thank you. Questions for staff? Seeing none, this is final adoption of this ordinance and will be on the board. Six ayes, no nays, and the ordinance is adopted on second reading, final and second reading. Next item, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances. An ordinance to amend Title 12, titled Building, Utility, Etc. Codes, Chapter 12, titled Energy Conservation Code of the Code of Ordinances, City of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, by deleting Section 12-1202, titled Amendments in its entirety, and substituting therefore a new Section 12-1202, titled Amendments, to adopt state-required amendments to the 2018 edition of the International Energy Conservation Code, and to create a new Section 12-1203, titled State-Required Provisions, all for the purpose of statutory compliance.
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. Any questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll be on the board. This is, again, on second and final reading of the ordinance. Six ayes, no nays, and the ordinance is approved on final reading. Next item of business, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing a professional services agreement with CTI Engineers, Knoxville, Tennessee, for the design, bidding, and construction administration and quality assurance and construction observation services associated with the valve replacement project at the water treatment plant in an amount not to exceed $218,000.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Berg?
The reservoirs at the water treatment plant will be continued to be used once the new treatment plant is in service. The lines feeding the city off of those reservoirs are original lines, 40s, 50s era, with original valving. There's a 16 and a 30-inch line coming off of those reservoirs. Our money in the funds used on the construction of the water treatment plant line and the water treatment plant kind of ends at those reservoirs. So this is something that we had taken previously in our ARPA resolution, talking about upgrading the valving at the plant. This is the beginning of the process of actually doing the upgrades. So as I said, we've previously talked about it, and it'll be on the continued use of those reservoirs.
All right. Questions for Mr. Berg? Ms. Smith?
These valves handle treated water? Is that, the water that's handled by these valves, is it treated water?
That is correct.
Okay, so it won't change the nature of the water after the new plant's built? So.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Berg? Seeing none, the motion.
One comment.
Okay, Mr.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
As I read this, they got the description. I think it's an RPR or an R. It's a guide that CTCI provides that monitors the job and interfaces with the city. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so I assume there's going to be periodic meetings though where you sit in with the RPR and both the contractor and the guy doing the work.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, we now will be on the board. The motion is to approve. Aye 6, no nays, and the resolution is approved. Next item of business, Madam Clerk.
A resolution adopting a Poet Laureate policy, which will provide structure for the city's Poet Laureate program.
Move to approve.
Moving second, Mr. Heeman.
Yes, Mayor, you have before you a policy related to Poet Laureate program, which would reign over how Poet Laureate was selected and what those activities would be. And I think you've seen this. It's been revised a little bit, but it is there for your review. I'd be happy to comment further. This is, as discussed, right now, not a paid position, and it is a position that's selected by a number of people that are laid out in the ordinance.
Mr. Dotson.
Yes, I'm assuming we're talking about the City of Oak Ridge, Tennessee Administrative Policy and Procedure Manual. Is that correct? Okay. Would you please look at item 2.3, duties of appointment. In regards to not providing a stipend or honorarium, I would suggest that we possibly look at number 1 and 2 and maybe striking those with regards to requirements of 5 public readings and or workshops for the Poet Laureate, and then also 3 public meetings, readings, or workshops for the Youth Poet Laureate. They could do less, they could do more, but they're not required to do those since there's not a stipend or an honorarium provided for those.
You're going to put that in the form of amendment?
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion to amend that with regards to striking through those required public readings and workshops for each of the Poet Laureate and also the Youth Poet Laureate.
I'll second that. Discussion on the amendments. Mr. Tinsley.
I agree with the intent of the revision.
Other comments or questions? So we will do a voice vote on the amendment. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? There are none. So we're now back on the resolution as amended. Further questions for Mr. Heeman? Seeing none, we'll be on the board. The motion is to approve the resolution as amended. 6 ayes, no nays. The resolution is amended. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
A resolution designating Rose Weaver as the next City of Oak Ridge Honorary Poet Laureate to serve for a 2-year term, and designating Lillian Schaefer as the first Honorary Youth Poet Laureate to serve for a 1-year term.
Move to accept.
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions, comments? Seeing none.
Mayor.
Mr. Dodson.
Yeah, thank you. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention some of the people who are on the committee. If you are here in the audience, I would really appreciate it if you could stand up. Very talented group of citizens who devoted their time. Rebecca Hale, are you in the audience? Okay, Rebecca Hale is an English teacher for 23 years, 18 of which have been with the Oak Ridge High School, and currently teaches creative writing, detective fiction, yearbook, and senior English. Paul McDonough, Riverside poet, founder and editor of Glitch, former board member, Coffee House Press. Thank you, Paul. Beto Cumming, and by the way, Beto has given us one of his books with his poems in it. Beto Cumming is an editor and book designer for Iris Press, and also our chair this year. Thank you. I don't think Ellen or Erin or Elizabeth Smith is in the audience. She was our former Poet Laureate this past year. She is Executive Director of Sundress Publications and Sundress Academy of the Arts and 2023 Academy of American Poets Laureate Fellow. And then finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Rhea Carmen. Rhea's one who actually got this ball rolling. Several years ago, we were talking about an art and poetry contest with the Scarborough 85, and Rhea's one of the people who started that, and Rhea was a teacher at Robertsville Middle School, but also she is the Poet Laureate Emeritus of the City of Knoxville, Tennessee, and the director of the Fifth Woman Poetry Collective. So I'd really like to thank this group of individuals for helping us narrow this down. It was a very difficult choice. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Any other comments? If not, the motion is to approve, and we're on the board. Six ayes, no nays, and the resolution is adopted, and we thank the new serving Poet Laureates of the City of Oak Ridge. Let's go. Okay. All right. Next item of business, Madam Clerk.
A resolution waiving competitive bids and authorizing the purchase of 75 Agilite ballistic plate carrier packages from Falcon Company Tactical LLC, Greenback, Tennessee, in an amount not to exceed $76,362.50.
Move for approval. Second. Chief Smith.
I brought visual aid. So it's just easier to show you what it looks like than it is to try to describe it. This is about 10 years old. This is the one I was issued 10 years ago. I carry it in my car. They have ceramic plates, ballistic plates in them, and it's this is a company we're very familiar with that has a good reputation. There's only one dealer in the state of Tennessee, and that's the reason why we've asked for a waiver. There's only one dealer in the state of Tennessee, and that's who we've asked to go through to get this particular model.
Questions for Chief Smith? Ms. Smith?
Yeah, I didn't know what a ballistic plate carrier was until I got this memorandum and looked it up on the internet. One thing I was curious about is whether they are one size fits all or whether they come in different sizes, since you're ordering 75 of them.
Very much. It's just adjust. You open it up, it's Velcroed, and then you just adjust it to the size of the person that's wearing it.
Okay,
larger, smaller.
So it's not like a uniform that has to be purchased for a particular person.
No.
It can be
It's
transferred
adjustable.
to other people.
Yes,
That's-
ma'am.
That's good. And indication that after 10 years they have no more usable life. What happens to them over time?
The carriers themselves are still usable. there would be a liability of us giving the plates to someone else, but we can donate the carriers, the vest part, to other agencies to use, and they would just have to buy the plates then to put in them.
Okay, so that's typically what would happen to our used
Yes, ma'am.
carriers.
And I've been asked why we don't just buy new plates, and I'm going to be very candid. As part of our reputation for recruitment and retention has to do with having the best equipment and the best training, and we want new vests to put on our officers. So,
Okay. Well, I appreciate the visual aids and demonstration.
yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
Mr. Hensley?
Yeah, I was in the same position as Ms. Smith. I did not know what they were, so I called Chief Smith, and he gave me a great explanation for what they are. And I asked him why 75, and he said, well, we've got 71 officers, and you hope to hire at least 4 more. So,
Yes, sir.
All right, any other comments, questions? We're on the board. Motion is to approve. Ayes 6, no nays, and the resolution is approved. Thank you, Chief Smith. Next resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution amending Resolution 2-18-2024 to increase the authorized expenditure amount from a not-to-exceed amount of $200,000 to a not-to-exceed amount of $500,000 for auto parts purchases in fiscal year 2024.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Berg?
The previous council session, we discussed the need to authorize a kind of blanket purchase order for auto parts. We then amended that resolution on the floor. I spoke then with our attorney, city manager, and our finance director, and we pulled together basically the data on everything that we're spending on parts throughout the city. Came up to a final number, sat down, had a discussion. Looking through everything that we spend, we're at about $320,000 through February. This resolution would then allow us to continue basically paying our bills and spend the remaining money necessary to continue through the end of this year. We did look down and look at the different places we were purchasing from. Most of our purchases are from either O'Reilly's or Standard Auto Parts. This is primarily because they deliver to our facility, allowing our crewmen to continue to work on the vehicles without having to leave the facility to go pick up parts. But we had a list of about 40 vendors that we work through to supply parts, depending on what it is, what piece of equipment we need to work on. So as written, this amendment would allow us then to purchase parts as necessary through our different vendors. We would continue to follow the purchasing policy, so any particular part over $2,500 we would be getting quotes for. Any purchase over $25,000 we would be coming to council for. I would also state that we did bring this to the Budget and Finance Committee and kind of discuss it in more detail there, and kind of get their approval to move forward there.
Mr. Hensley?
yeah, I was wondering why, because there's a statement in here that the city purchases auto parts wide variety of places depending on needs, including O'Reilly's, Fisher, AutoZone, probably the other one. I'm just wondering why you call out O'Reilly's, because I don't want us to get accused of favoritism on the front end.
I will tell you, it's because of the delivery. As Mr. Byrd stated, if we have to send mechanics to go get parts, it wastes a lot of time. So it is really the function of the delivery that pushes us in that direction.
Smith?
Yeah, is it usual to be spending amounts like $300,000 or $500,000 a year on auto parts for the city fleet? That seems like a lot. I know there's some very specialized equipment and so forth, but curious to know what that's all about.
This would appear to be typical. Obviously, as Mr. Hope stated in our previous meeting, part prices are increasing and increasing rapidly. So, we're before, say, prior to the pandemic, we may have been spending $300,000 throughout the year. what we're currently seeing is hitting closer to 500,000. That's both a function of increased prices as well as the vehicles that have come up for repair this year. We've had several vehicles that had extensive repairs that are also on that list that add up to about $80,000 of that amount.
Wow. Thanks.
Mr. Hope.
Patrick, part of this is, not just vehicles or automobiles, there are specialized equipment, heavy equipment, that kind of stuff, that all falls into this category.
That is correct. Anything serviced by the shop is under this.
One of the other things we've discussed in the past, and I'd like you to make sure that you continue to look at that, if your software allows you, is that we look at cost per mile, maintenance cost per mile, not just on fleet vehicles like patrol cars, fire trucks, but anything we're running either by the hour or by the mile. That may help us determine if it's worth us doing the repairs on some vehicles as they start to age out.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? Seeing none, the motion is to approve, and we're on the board. Ayes 6, no nays, and the resolution is approved. Next resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution approving the purchase of a 60-foot bucket truck for the electric department from Global Rental Company Incorporated, Birmingham, Alabama, through the Sourcewell Purchasing Cooperative in the amount of $230,830.
Move for approval.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Cross?
Yes, sir. This is for the replacement of a 2005 bucket truck that has 85,000 miles on it, 7,400 engine hours, and it is well past the spot where we need to replace it. It's had hydraulic issues, electrical issues, and engine issues. The equipment shop has evaluated it and has recommended replacement. And so this truck is available through Sourcewell, and we're a member of that and can do this. It's an Altec bucket, which is an excellent piece of equipment with a material handler, and it's just a standard spec bucket truck.
And what are we going to do with the truck that's being replaced?
We would love to keep it around for emergency situations. There's times when you have storms like we experienced this past winter that you can break down to two-man crews, and that gives you some additional flexibility as far as being able to handle outages. It also helps when you're doing heavy maintenance, give you an additional bucket you can use at times in substations when you're using a lot of guys doing specific work. So we would like to keep it around just as a spare.
Ms. Smith?
How many of this type of truck does the electric department have?
Ms. Smith, I wish you hadn't asked me that specific question this early in my tenure. We have a handful, but this would replace one that we're currently using daily, and it is well beyond the point where it should be replaced.
Okay. But there's a few.
There's a handful,
Yeah.
yes, there
Yeah.
is. There's
Okay.
several.
Thanks.
Other questions, comments? Mr. Cross? Ms. Gleason?
Sir, what's the lead time on this order?
This truck is available currently, and that's why we would like to move on it. It is typically on the heavy equipment, you're looking at 2 to 3 year lead time, and this one is available right now.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, the motion is to approve, and we're on the board. Six ayes, no nays, and the resolution is adopted. Next resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution amending Resolution 4-37-2021 to increase the authorized expenditure amount within Harris Computer Corporation, Kayenta, to integrate the advanced metering infrastructure, AMI, and meter data management, MDM, into the city's existing customer information software system from a not-to-exceed amount of $152,900 to a not-to-exceed amount of $305,500.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Cross, I'll just be I'll just be plain here. Is this the only alternative we have? Is this the best alternative we have? Is this the most practical alternative that we have?
It's the alternative that we have right now. Of course, Kayenta, I know there's been some issues and that happened during the rollout. We've been working with Kayenta staff and trying to get a lot of those issues resolved. They've been fairly helpful of late. They've been really helpful of late as far as helping us work through issues. There's a lot of specific things that we have experienced. But Cayenne is the software we're using, and we're using it in the building office, the business office, and it is, both of these products are Harris Computer System products as far as Kayenta and SmartWorks, the meter data management system. So this is Kayenta's cost to integrate the two pieces of software for us. Our staff has worked with Kayenta. There's been a team for the city that have worked on this for a 6-month period beginning December 22 through June of 23, and working through the statement of work. And we're not terribly happy that the prices went up from $152,900 early estimate to right at $305,000. So we're not super happy about that, but it's where it is. I will say that probably as we experienced through part of the ERP, the enterprise resource planning, putting everything together last year when we went live with Kayenta with the finance department, I think there were some lessons learned there, and we probably have made sure that we've dedicated sufficient hours for this, and that's probably pushed the costs up. So part of it's probably on us.
Thank you. Mr. Hensley?
Yeah, I called a friend at TVA who works in their administration. They've got a system that's 25 years old, by the way, that does similar. But the impression I got is that, and he said that several cities are calling with the same problems, and that it's not, and anybody that tells you to putting in automatic meters is not telling you the whole story. And I'm afraid this ends up being a money pit for a long time, and I wonder what we're saving over the white pickup trucks with the guy that goes over and reads the meter.
In my previous position, when I retired from Platte Electric Cooperative, we actually put automated metering in place back in 2005, 2006 timeframe. And what it does do, it does eliminate meter readers. But you can typically bring those folks into the organization some other spot, and you can have some efficiencies there. But there's a lot of costs that you do save. It has been successful as far as throughout the valley. Most power distributors have automated metering infrastructure. I really do like the Census product as far as the metering. It's an RF system, a radio frequency system. The one we installed was a power line carrier. I believe this to be a superior system. Knoxville Utility Board uses Census. There's many power distributors in the valley that uses Census, and I feel like it's a good product. So in spite of maybe some of the issues we've experienced with our customer information system, I think this is, as far as the AMI system, I think it's a really solid system. So I am convinced of that, Mr. Hensley.
Other questions, Ms. Smith?
Yeah, I'd like to comment that I really appreciate the idea of moving to automated meter reading. I think there are a number of benefits, as Mr. Cross has pointed out. Some additional items are that it can provide basically near real-time feedback related to issues like problems with the water meters, since water is part of the system, lost leaks, problems with electric meters. It also enables billing to be sent out at the customer's choice of billing date rather than the few days after the meter was read, which is the current arrangement. It's not popular with our customers. And it could facilitate prepaid arrangements for people who are behind on their account to limit the amount they have to pay at any given time, pay for the next week's power rather than trying to pay for 2 months ago's power. I think it's advantageous for us for a variety of reasons, and it's what almost everybody else is doing. So it also would possibly enable time-of-day pricing, which we can't feasibly offer right now because we don't know when people use the electricity that they're receiving. I had one question about this item, and that is, this is basically just one little piece of the automated meter infrastructure, and it's related to integrating the meter system with our financial system. This, as I understand it, this contract is to cover basically the pilot period of getting this all set up. Do we have reason to hope that that work during the pilot period will take care of that setup on this system, and we won't have to pay again when we move to beyond the pilot to full-scale implementation?
There will be some additional cost on down the road, I anticipate fully. I do appreciate your comments, Ms. Smith. I think you've done a better job explaining the AMI than I did. But there's so many advantages. But yes, there will be some additional costs to come. Any of those that exceed our purchasing authority will come back to the council. But I do believe this will help us to do our pilot project, and we're ready to go. We have those meters, and we're ready to rumble. So we're ready to go.
Okay, thanks.
And one other thing I would like to point out, as far as towards the future, this is a prerequisite to be able to put together a outage management system. So on down the road, so we would have you'd be able to get on the internet and see where we have meters out, where we have service interruptions, and I think that would be a really good improvement for us.
Thanks.
Dave, this is a pilot program. Is this system-wide, or is this just a set number of utility services that we're going to look at with the pilot program to integrate that, or is that going to go across the full spectrum of the city?
It's about 1,750 meters. It's going to be in the Woodland area, and we already have the radio frequency towers up at substation 600 and at the Delaware water tank.
So after the pilot program runs its course and we agree it's good, we've integrated it into our system, are we then looking at additional funds after that to go system-wide across the whole city?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea what that costs to be yet?
It is about $2.5 million.
$2.5 million.
Yeah.
Have we brought that back in front of Budget and Finance yet?
I believe that was approved overall with the 2021 as far as the metering.
Is that $2.5 million, all that with Kayenta?
Yes, it would all be used in Kayenta.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Cross? Seeing none, the motion is to approve, and we're on the board. Ayes 6, no nays. The resolution is approved. Next resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing a professional services agreement with Clark Nexon, Johnson City, Tennessee, for assessment and conceptual design work for renovation of the Performance Pavilion in AK Bissell Park in an amount not to exceed $26,000.
Move for approval.
Moved and seconded. Yes, sir.
Hello, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
What we're asking is to enter into a contract for the assessment design work for the pavilion. It was done mostly the shade structure, but also the bathrooms and other areas. It was put together in 1992. It's roughly about 31 years old with a life expectancy of 10 years. So we've done repairs on it and so forth and so on over the years. But we evaluated it in 2017, and it was about $400,000 to redo the shade structure. Since then, we've entered into a request in the 2026 CIP for $600,000. So we're asking that the council look at evaluating options for renovations of the pavilion roof, including the structure, roofing, and restroom and storage areas. Basically, designs and pavilion will remain, but new options and materials for finishes are both effective and durable can be evaluated. So we can try not to spend as much money and make something more durable.
Any questions for staff? Ms. Smith?
Performers in the pavilion would be happy to have new cover over them.
Yes.
Based on what advanced work you've done, do you have some sense for how long the new cover might last?
No, we haven't really got there yet. That's why we're wanting to start that process and see what kind of structures or ideas that the designer may have.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Dodson?
Very quick question. I'm hoping this is appropriate, but ORNL Federal Credit Union has stepped up and worked toward making the pavilion a lot better aesthetically and also safer, I think, too. Have they approached the city of Oak Ridge about continuing this partnership with regard to this?
Not to my knowledge, but they have recently done work on it. They painted it and done a couple of other things to it. So that was last year, I do believe. So they are still involved, but as far as moving forward, we haven't really discussed that yet.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Hensley?
But the design of the pavilion is going to still be similar with the
Yes.
tent roof. I know the high school kids call it the big Pringle.
Pringle, yes. That is one of the options. We're asking for 2 conceptual designs, and we'd like to kind of keep it similar if possible.
Thank you.
Mr. Gleason?
Thanks, sir. The Clark Nixon compensation schedule that they provided to the $26,000, you're proposing a lump sum fee to them in that award amount?
Yes.
You may want to, and this is a bit of a contractual nitnoid, but you may want to have them strike the cost per hour heading above those amounts, just to clarify that the total lump sum cost would be $26K. Thanks, sir.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we're on the board. Six ayes, no nays, and the resolution is approved. Next resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution supporting the Oak Ridge Municipal Planning Commission's request to seek the assistance of a third-party consultant in the development of an updated comprehensive plan and directing the city manager to work with staff and the Planning Commission Steering Committee in seeking and evaluating proposals for such services.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Blasius.
Thank you, Mayor. Under state law, the Planning Commission has responsibility for having and updating what's called a general plan in the statute, but comprehensive plan in somewhat typical terms. Ours is incredibly old, developed in 1985. It's typically a 20-year plan, so I don't need to do that math for you. Planning Commission has encouraged that it be updated for several years. I would say that Councilman Commissioner Hensley has been trumpeting that for many, many years about the need to update it, and we've been trying valiantly to do it with existing staff, which is very atypical. Mr. Hensley, Mr. Heeman and I have talked about this. Planning Commission has recommended, and our 2 commissioners here may want to weigh in, but that we enlist a third-party consultant to help move this process at a more reasonable rate, and that's what this resolution is about.
Mr. Hensley? Your comments?
I'll comment if you don't mind, maybe.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I think we've needed a comp plan.
I'm going to follow Councilman Hensley with regard to this. This is much needed, and we've had an existing comp plan for quite a long time. A lot of the information will be driven from our blueprint, which we completed a couple of years back, and it was okayed or approved by City Council. So hopefully, with this added funding, it'll prove that we will receive a quality product that's not something that will be set in the back shelf, but actually used as we progress further with the direction of our city.
Now, Mr. Henry.
There's an opportunity now that we've never had in the past, and I'm talking about when I first got on the Planning Commission in '84. DOE has offered to, they said, tell us what you want. This is the first time that we've heard that from DOE. Tell us what you want. And so to me, this is a real opportunity, and I feel like that if we're talking about land transfers or Carbide Park or Heaven Estate Park, who knows? But at least we can put something down in a plan that they can look at and work around and talk around to us and others. Bingo.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Hope?
Wade, I know that listening to my fellow council members, Planning Commission's been extremely busy over the last several years, and as a growing city, we continue to get more and more busy with our housing developments, commercial development, and whatnot. With that in mind, and with the city staff's time in mind, you can only do so much. So I would certainly support this to have a consultant company come out and help us with this and pursue this from a third-party designation.
Other questions? Come on, Smith.
Yeah, can you summarize what the cost of this is apt to be?
The cost varies depending upon the scope. I know that's not the answer you want to hear, but the truth is it depends upon when we come in and we look at the blueprint, the foundation that's been laid, what do we want to do from a standpoint of how much interaction. We have unusual things to plan, everything from neighborhoods to new nuclear, things that a lot of people have not dealt with. We've got groups like ETEC that need to be involved. We've got lots of neighborhood groups. We've got a great conservation corps here and greenway folks that need to be included in the process. So it will depend upon the scope. I will tell you the previous one in a slightly larger city that I worked on was close to $150,000. I would anticipate anywhere, and I hate to throw numbers out, but 75 to 125 would not surprise me at all. I would expect a number somewhere in that range.
Okay, so it's in that range rather than, say, 17 million. You can get a sense
Correct.
of where we are. Thanks.
And of course, before it comes to us, you'll review any proposal with Budget and Finance.
Correct.
All right. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, we're on the board. Six ayes, no nays. The resolution is approved. Thank you, Mr. Blazes. Next resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to negotiate agreements with the Scarborough 85 Monument Committee for the design, construction, and maintenance of the proposed Scarborough 85 Monument in A.K. Bissell Park.
Move for approval.
Moved and seconded, Mr. Hedrick.
Thank you, Mayor. As noted in the memo, this is a follow-up to the resolution approved by City Council approximately a year ago in support of the Scarborough 85 Monument Committee, and specifically the construction of a monument to the Scarborough 85 in A.K. Bissell Park. As part of that process, we want to give the city manager the authority to work with the group in order to define roles and responsibilities as the project moves forward.
Mr. Hensley?
Yeah, I'd like to say I'm also on the Scarborough 85 committee. I've been to 3 meetings so far, and there's a great deal of enthusiasm, and the architect is very talented, and he has the right perspective about accomplishing a job like this, which I was concerned about when I first saw it. But I've seen his plans now, and it's step-by-step engineering to construction with a great deal of involvement with the city. And we got several members of the committee right back here, too, by the way, so this is a golden opportunity.
Yes, and this is the same architect that we work with on the Peace Belt Pavilion project, so we are familiar with working with them, yes.
Mr. Dodson.
And, Mr. Hedrick, I just want to ask this question. Will there be an opportunity for the Scarborough 85 Monument Committee to work with Dr. Mark Buckner at Oak Ridge High School and the new 3D printed technology that he has with regards to the partnership between our schools and also this committee?
It's my understanding that there have been discussions between the committee and the schools about student participation. I don't think that the city has been engaged in those discussions. I don't know of any reason why we would not want that to happen or why we would discourage that. But again, this is an opportunity for the city manager to sit down with the group and define what those roles and responsibilities will be. We haven't had those discussions yet, but I certainly don't see any reason why we would not want that to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Hedrick.
Sure.
Mr. Hensley.
Yeah, from my participation in the committee, the intent is to get the high school students involved in the AI production of the voices in the monuments. And so, the word is you only need to hear 3 words, and that AI person can then speak in their voice and tell the story of their experience with the Scarborough 85. And so to me, it's the high school is deeply involved.
All right, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we are on the board, and the motion is to approve. Mr. Hensley. Six ayes, no nays, and the resolution is approved. Next resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing a professional services agreement with Demian Wilbur Architects, Washington, D.C., for architectural and engineering services for the proposed Scarborough 85 monument in A.K. Bisla Park in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
Move to approve. Moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Comments? Seeing none, the motion is to approve, and we're on the board. Six ayes, no nays, and the resolution is approved. Next resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing an amendment and additional $5,750 to the existing professional services agreement with Falconeer Design Company, Knoxville, Tennessee, to provide renovation design for the city court clerk's office area for a new total amount not to exceed $30,500.
Moved and seconded.
Yes, this will be to include the countertop area in the court clerk office. So currently the countertop is outdated. It has plexiglass. When people come up, it's difficult for them to write. What this will do, this will redesign the counter, and there's a dead space beside it. We're going to remove that dead space and create 2 windows. One of them will be ADA height for someone that comes in a wheelchair, and the other one will be normal height with a designed counter to where we can talk to with a safety glass for a little bit more protection for the people behind. Currently, if someone comes in a wheelchair, they have to go around the hallway and all the way through and come outside to talk to them. So this will make it more easily accessible for the people with disabilities. So this will also kind of put the project together. I know that if we do this design together, then when it comes to the construction process will be at the same time, and there'll be less downtime for the courtroom. So that'll also include the offices and the judge's chamber.
All right, any questions or comments? Seeing none, the motion is to approve. We're on the board. Six ayes, no nays, and the resolution is approved. Next resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution amending Resolution 9-117-2023, authorizing the transfer of city-owned property located off Carver Avenue behind the Scarborough Community Center to the Oak Ridge Housing Authority to be used for development of new workforce housing to add additional acreage to the transfer.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Heeman?
Yes, sir. There's about an additional 1.7 acres from the city that has been requested here. Parks and Recreation has looked at it. We will work out details on how we move things around to make this continue to work, but do not anticipate any issues with continuation of services at the Scarborough Center as they are. It will not impact the Scarborough Center, so we are recommending transfer of the property.
Questions for Mr. Heeman or staff? Seeing none. The motion is to approve, and we're on the board. Six ayes, no nays, and the resolution is approved. Next item of business, Madam Clerk.
Next item is appearance of citizens.
All right. Citizens shall be permitted to address City Council about matters that were not on the agenda tonight. Any citizen wishing to do so shall raise your hand and proceed to the public lectern, and after recognition, state your name, address, and the purpose of your appearance before council. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes and shall relate to matters of city business. They shall not generally result in a formal response or action at the time of presentation, because in many cases, neither the council nor the staff will be prepared to respond effectively. However, I may respond to the question or direct the city manager to do so, or have the city manager work with the citizens to effect resolution of the matter. Statements that are purely political in nature will not be allowed, such as campaign speeches or announcements of candidacy for office, nor will announcements of the civic or social event that is unrelated to city business. Are the members of the audience wishing to address council? Okay, I will start on my left and then come to my right. Yes, ma'am. If you come forward, state your name and address.
Good evening. Shayla Wilson, 131 South Charles G. Severs Boulevard in Clinton. I'm the executive director at ASAP of Anderson, and today I have with me Sarah. She is our new prevention coordinator, and so just wanted to introduce her to you all, as she will be serving our youth, and so I'll let her introduce herself.
Thank you.
Hello, Sarah Coley Bean, 131 South Charles G. Severs Boulevard. Hi, it's very nice to meet you all. I'm our new youth coordinator helping out with ASAP. I'm from Anderson County. I was actually graduated from Clinton in 2017, got my master's in public health from UT, Go Vols, in 22. So just wanted to introduce myself. Very excited to work with Oak Ridge Youth as well. So.
Thank you. All right, off to my right. Yes, ma'am. If you come forward.
I'm Lillian Schaefer. My
Okay,
address.
if you'll speak a little closer to the microphone, please.
I'm Lillian Schaefer. My address is 103 Forestberry Street, and I would like to read my poem.
Okay, go right ahead.
I've been waiting for you as the cold sinks in, surrounds me, allowing me no warmth, no protection. It leaves an imprint on my skin as you once did, sinking into my pores, holding me hostage. It whispers signs of caution. Yet I know it never intended to uplift my cries of exhaustion. I desire to seek validation in distant places, to feel as though it was my own decision, pure, utter manipulation. I cried for you, I yearned for you, but to no avail did you uphold my infatuations. Now I lay in this vile state of degradation, sickened with agony of corrupted defile, in this state of utmost denial. Now I wait for you to show your face, to come collect me at your disgrace.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other members of the audience wishing to address council? Ms. Weaver.
I'm Rose Weaver, and I am the new Port Laureate for Oak Ridge. And I'm excited. And I'm excited because I'm going to be working with this young lady that got up and said so many beautiful words. My challenge and my direction is going to be working with young people for them to express themselves, and I am hoping that young people this creative writing will encourage them to want to read and want to write, because that is the way that they're going to be able to excel. So my poem is entitled Newness, because we're talking about all these new things that are going to be happening.
And you got 2 minutes.
Okay, okay. Hey, we travel unmapped roads in this secret city, and in time, my hope is that history will be rewritten. You see, like the sweetness of an old-fashioned sugar cone enveloped with sweet taste of homemade ice cream, the birth of atomic energy was the vision of Brigadier General Leslie R. Groves prevailed. And my challenge is that Oak Ridge has another story to tell. You see, because researchers, technicians, janitors, and the Scarborough 85 created hope to give this Oak Ridge city alive. You see, this town is your town. This town is my town. Communities mingled with one another. Keeping with Women's History Month, we got to be on the theme of diversity, inclusion, and unity. You see, like those who sacrificed in the 1940s, keep Oak Ridge economically fervent. Let's revive. Separation and indifference brings a whole lot of mess. Each one of us, a part of the secret ingredient Oak Ridge, have got to be revived. We see we're like a beacon on the hill. We're going to be like New York, way up on top of the tower, to be fulfilled. We are a commodity of economic growth, science history, education worth. We got tentacles continuing to grow. You see, you give me red, I'll give you blue. Together we're going to make purple, because we're going to be together and we're going to emerge. What you did not have together, we're going to make it more a unique commodity of togetherness. But there is a greater task at hand, new beginnings, so legacies can be retold. The periodic pleasure of small happenings is upon us. Newness is going to unfold. So, working together for a common need, we will witness the new seed. A new secret city with unity will emerge, forging ahead with substance and financial worth.
Thank you. With 20 seconds left. Are there other citizens in the audience wishing to address council? Seeing none, we are on the next order of business, which are elections. Madam Clerk, are any of these positions contested?
No, sir.
All right. I would entertain a motion that the candidates whose resumes you have in front of you for both boards be approved unanimously. Mr. Hensley makes a motion. Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All right. And Madam Clerk, if you would read the names of the individuals who've just been elected.
Okay, for the Anderson County Board of Equalization, you've got Dr. Mark Watson. For the Convention and Visitors Bureau Explorer Ridge Hotel position, you have Sonia Roy. And for the Trade Licensing Board, you have Regina Guy, Mark Maddox, and Joe McCarty.
Thank you, and we appreciate their willingness to serve. The next item of business is the appointment of three-member committee on the compensation of the city judge.
Yes. You want me to?
Ms. Rackard?
Yes. So when we were processing the paperwork to process Judge McNeese out with his official retirement, we came across a resolution that City Council passed in 2006 and then I think amended in 2012. And that resolution does require City Council to appoint a three-member committee to evaluate the judge's salary, and that is supposed to be done every year in the last year of the judge's term. So that would be currently now with the recommendations of that committee brought back to City Council if there are any recommendations on change in salary by July 1st. so that city council can act on it prior to the election in November. And then since you have an existing compensation committee that's still active, I thought you might just want to roll that into their responsibility.
That would be my recommendation, and that would be the motion that I make, that this be referred to the compensation committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith?
Yeah, I believe in the past, there was a custom, and I'm not sure why this originated, that this committee had to be constituted by people who weren't running for election in the same year as the city judge. So I know that I've served twice on the committee to review the city judge's compensation for that reason, because of the cycle that the judge was on. I don't remember what the logic was, but it was related to keeping it from being some sort of a notion that the committee was setting the salary of somebody else who was on the ballot with them or something. I don't remember the logic, but that was what we've done traditionally. I just wanted to share that because it's out there.
Mr. Hope?
That could present a problem since all three of your composition committee members are in an election cycle year.
I understand. Is there anything that is required by statute or ordinance?
No.
And at the time when that was done and renewed, there was no compensation committee.
Correct.
And so I stand on my motion, and I call for the question.
Yes, sir.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. All right. Council requests for new business items or future briefings. Mr. Tinsley.
Yeah, during our beautiful poet laureate, before she read her poetry, sent me a note and said she would love to make a presentation to council and the city manager on the Elks Lodge. So I would like to suggest that we put that on a council work session.
Work session. All right.
Do that.
Other items, business items for future briefings? All right. Seeing no more of those, Mr. Heeman, do you have a report?
Yes, sir. I'll be brief. Wanted to point out that our department directors had a staff retreat on March 1st. Spent a good amount of time discussing a strategic plan that really is the culmination of the things that we have in the works and things that we have heard from you in the 4+ months that I've been here. We will get that in front of you at the April 8th budget workshop for further discussion. I mean, it is your strategic plan. I just want to point out we've gotten a start on it, but it will be open to whatever City Council wants to do with that plan. I've had the opportunity to speak to the Evening Rotary Club and the League of Women Voters. Would love to have additional speaking engagements if you have any suggestions, and would open that up to the audience for anyone that is looking for a speaker. We had around 40 applications for the deputy city manager position. It would take all 40 of them to replace Mr. Suggs, so we're going to continue to look.
Well, maybe he'd like to reapply.
Now that Mrs. Suggs is gone, he might answer that question. I doubt it, though. We are in the process of reviewing departmental goals for the budget as well, and our TVA audit is going on, and I'll be meeting with those folks on Friday, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Questions for the manager. Mr. Hanson?
Oh, sorry. I'm okay.
Ms. Smith? All right. Anything else? All right. Ms. Reichert?
I will do a quick report and let you know that the Charter Review Committee has concluded its work. And at your next meeting, I'll bring to you an ordinance for the one recommendation that they have asked for, and that is a modification to the provision in the charter regarding the elections to handle the statutory change for elections of school board members.
Okay. Questions for Ms. Rackard or any other comments? Seeing none, I want to thank everyone for your attendance and for your participation, and have a good rest of the evening, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much.